Hi, Sandy Shore here from smoothjazz.com Global. We've created a monthly video series that we kind of call it the No Messin session because we drill down on what's real about industry subjects. And I have invited a really cool brain trust here with me today to answer the industry question that we're hearing a lot of, and that is, when will the concerts and festivals be coming back everywhere? Artists want to know and fans want to know, and our very industry depends on it. So you will see here this distinguished panel of guests from different corners of the live music world, and we'll check the temperature on this subject from our vantage points. With me here from smoothjazz.com is my colleague, our very own event marketing director, Esther Byrne. And we've also got with us today President and CEO of Omega Events in Southern California, Rich Sherman. And Rich has been running Omega since 1995, and that is a wonderful live event entertainment company on the West Coast that's been a leader in their field. Also with us today, international booking agent Maria Matias from Maria Matias Music, whose artists include Gregory Porter, Avery Sunshine, and Kenny Garrett, to name a few. And Maria is also a neighbor here on the Monterey Peninsula with me in the home of smoothjazz.com. And last but certainly not least, artist manager for one of the most well-known recording groups in contemporary jazz, Acoustic Alchemy, James Coxhead joins us. Acoustic Alchemy also happens to be one of the most touring bands in our genre, and they've had to sit this last year out on ice like so many artists that we know. So I want to candidly discuss with you folks what your perspective is now on the surface after a year of COVID. And I would also like to discuss a little bit about how it affected you at the beginning, when you started to connect the dots as to when this was all happening, when the pandemic started to slowly shut our world down. And first we thought it was weeks, then we thought it might be months, and nobody realized it was going to be years. So I want to open this up, if it's okay, with Esther, because she and I work together every week, and we're on the phone talking with different event partners. And so, Esther, you probably have a very interesting vantage point, and I imagine various different reactions from producers all over the world with the live events.
Yes, for sure. It's funny, Sandy, had we have had this conversation a few weeks ago, we would have had nothing about festivals or, we were still in the dark. We didn't know what was coming or how things were going. And then a few weeks back, I decided to reach out to all of our event partners, just, very respectfully, to see how things were and how things were coming along, where they're going to be coming up this year. And it's just popped. I mean, it hasn't stopped. There's so many coming in. It's mainly late summer, fall, very little before then, but they're certainly excited. They can see it coming, and it's very exciting for us also. I mean, it was hard to watch everything shutting down for a whole year. I mean, like you said earlier, you thought it was going to be we all thought it was going to be for maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And then it just kept rolling and rolling, and it went into a year, and no one really knew what was happening. But this week, I mean, myself and Sandy worked together quite a lot, and we've just been on the phone constantly. It
Yeah.
hasn't stopped. I mean, and it's very heartwarming for us. It's very heartwarming to see that so many people they're ready to go back out. What it's going to look like, we're not 100% sure at the moment. And will they go ahead 100%? We're not sure about that either, but they're certainly out there wanting to do it. And, we're advertising for them, and it's very, very hopeful at the moment, for sure.
And we want to be sensitive to the fact that this industry was hit, the live music industry was hit so
Mhm.
hard by the economy. Without ticket sales, event promoters and agents, as well as artists, have struggled, tremendously. Rich, tell us a little bit about last year, and of course, I want your vantage point from now too, what you're seeing on the surface of today. But what happened last year when you guys were busy gearing up, you booked a whole series, you booked a festival, as you do, and not just one festival, but as many as you guys do. What did that look like when the dominoes started to hit each other?
It was interesting because I went to a a festival on March 6th in Phoenix with like 15,000 younger people. Went with my daughter who's in college, and I love the music too, but it was amazing. The only worry we had at that time was the event going to happen, but there was no thought of, well, we should wear masks or we should use gloves. My daughter volunteered and tore tickets and put wristbands on the whole crowd. That was March 6th. By the time I got home from Phoenix, like the 10th of March through like the end of the month, everything had collapsed. All of our clients had basically put everything on hold, understandably. But it was not just the concert industry, everything was shutting down. Sports leagues, movie theaters, everything, as we remember. I mean, we were all there and remember it all. So I don't think at the time anybody really had a moment to reflect on it. It was more of every decision that was being made sense. I don't think anybody thought it would last as long as it has. Obviously, I'm stating the obvious. But I think there was a lot of effort, cooperation between, our side of the business, which is the venue, to the promoter, to the agent, to the manager, to the artist. That chain, as far as getting the artists on stage, was very cooperative. I think we were dealing with something. It was similar. We did a festival the weekend after 9/11, and I recall at that time, we had the Doobie Brothers and Johnny Lang and some acts like that who couldn't get to the event. But the cooperation, I recall being so amazing between, sometimes it can be standoffish, especially with the bigger agencies and bigger artists, whatever it might be. To a man, everybody who was involved in the chain was wanting to help each other. Like, what do we do now? And forget about the contract. Forget about that. Do you have expenses? Don't, we'll take care of it. We'll get it done. And I think it showed a humanity in the industry that you rarely see. I mean, we're all friends, but it's business too. Mm-hmm. And business was put aside, and that was awesome to see. And but I mean, a company like mine that at that time we had 8 clients, between festivals and concert series and things we're doing, and they all went away, and they're still away. A year later. So I don't know. It's, there was moments this past year, I think we all can agree, like, you feel spirited, like there's a sign, and then you go, oh geez, well that happened, and that somebody made that statement. We all follow the leaders of all industries, whether it be like, what's Disneyland going to do this year, or what, will there be spectators at baseball, which in California, they just announced that there will be. So we try to kind of absorb the information and see how it applies to our industry, the jazz industry. But I think, as Esther said, there's hopeful signs. I mean, there absolutely, I think we're seeing that everybody is feeling optimistic and ready to open back up. And now it's a matter of, how do we do it?
Yeah. And Maria,
Yes.
same question for you. When, you have a lot of oars in the water there over at Maria Matias Music, groups and bands everywhere. And you, when did you start to see that thread untangling before your eyes last year?
Again, thanks for having us, because I know a lot of the things we cover, people are asking. We have our own personal conversations with a lot of people out there. And to answer your question, I kind of thought it was going to be a couple of weeks, like we initially heard. I don't know what everyone heard individually, but from our corner, we had heard it was going to be a couple of weeks. And so I just, okay, a couple of weeks, okay. And then all of a sudden, this was late February, of course, early March was when everything started unfolding. And we were going into shows within those next few weeks. I mean, literally, we had shows dropping in. And we immediately began, conversations with everyone. We're like, whoa, what's going on? And what I ended up doing with our clients that we represent on the artist side was to let's take a chill, just take a second, let me get in there with the promoters and find out what's really going on, because they left it all to the states. Every state, even counties, you take a state of California, you have different things going on in the Central Coast than you have in Southern California, than you have in Northern California. So I was like, look, we can't really lay down any particular law until we find out what the lay of the land is, because everybody is, again, the initial 2 weeks, then it turned into 4 weeks. Okay, everybody's on the same page. And then it began to unfold itself. And so I went back to everyone and I said, right now, guys, let's be more reactive than proactive. We don't know what that proactive looks like. So let's just sit back, trust me to go in there and have the conversations with everybody and find out where everyone is. Well, the more conversations I had, the more enlightened I was with the fact that, wow, this is really happening. Because at first, like I said, I didn't give it it didn't weigh that hard, in the sense where, okay, we want to be safe. We want to follow what they're asking us to. And then all of a sudden now 4 weeks is like, well, we don't know. Now it's going into a month, 2 months. And again, to cut to the point here again, is we went back to the promoters and we were like, what's going on in Boston? What's going on in California? What's going on in Michigan? Because we represent clients, and here we represent clients all over the world. So I'm hearing from the Australians, they're shutting down. I'm hearing from the Netherlands, they're shutting down. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really worldwide. And so we have, like Rich touched on, a lot of communication and a lot of grace. I call it grace, because in our business, it's made of relationships, and our word is gold. I find contracts and corresponding a formality, right? But we get on the call, and usually what we end up coming up with, we tend to want to put that down on paper, hence where the contracts come in and everything after that. But we really trusted our relationships with everyone, and from our artists to our managers to the promoters, like you, Rich, like Sandy. I mean, I had business going on with both of you specifically, and it's like, okay, how do we work through this? And it's really trying to get everyone at the table to give each other the grace to get past it. So it turned on gradually, this whole pandemic thing. And then I believe, like Esther said earlier, that we are beginning to see things open up again. We're getting phone calls again. We're getting emails. What's the avails? We're looking at turning this back on. I think, again, what Esther mentioned, you're looking at late summer, September, and into the fall and early winter of 21. And of course, 22, people are full on. I mean, I've got avails from Axe. They want to move into 22. And so, we're taking it one day at a time, and we're giving as much grace as we can, and at the same time asking everyone to work with us. Because what I'm finding right now is that I have clients that hadn't spoken up before, but are now saying, well, how safe is it? Do we need, now we're hearing there's quarantines going on. Certain places are asking for a 10 to 14 day quarantine still. So again, it depends on where you are to deal with that. So I think right now we have to be case by case until they open up,
Yeah.
completely.
And that's a really good point. Depending where we are, on the planet. And James happens to be over across the pond in the UK with a band that is really, loved by contemporary jazz fans. And they typically do 2 tours a year. And you've got your spots and your festivals, James. And what was that like for you guys to, it started to dawn on you, I'm sure, last spring, that the summer may not be happening? and then the
Yeah.
fall may not be happening, you know?
No, it's funny when you mentioned 9/11. It was a similar thing both times. In that, I remember with 9/11, I was packing to fly out for a tour. First day of the tour, I was packing my suitcase, and the news was on in the background. And I happened to sort of, why do they keep showing an aeroplane? What is this? And everything suddenly changes. And it was a little bit more drawn out in this case, but it was a very similar experience where you're watching the news, and something in China, something in Italy now, what Italy's having a real problem. And you sort of, suddenly it dawns on you, hold on, this is a problem for us, and for Acoustic Alchemy specifically, there was some aspects of it that were more complicated, but some of it actually was an easier decision, because for us, when we're playing a long tour in America, we have to be very strict about budgets and travel expenses and things like that. They're a huge concern for the overall success of a tour. And when suddenly there's 100 factors that you have no control over, no idea. I mean, for example, as a touring band, if you have a tour and it starts on a certain date, well, if the quarantine rules change, where, okay, you've got to spend 14 days in a hotel when you land, well, that means either arriving 2 weeks before a tour and having 2 weeks in a hotel where you're paying for 10 rooms for 2 weeks with no income. That's a huge issue. But an even worse issue is we're starting a show in 2-3 days and we have to stay in a hotel. All of those things make it an incredibly sort of tough decision. And so for us, we had a tour in June, July, I think. And so by kind of March, it was fairly kind of obvious to us that we can't do this because there's too many risks, there's too many unknown factors. And like everyone else, we thought, but hey, it'll be fine for the fall. We'll just bounce everything. And I had those concerns, like we've mentioned, where, well, hold on, we've got a contract here. If we decide not to go because we're concerned or whatever, but the venue kind of comes back and says, well, we're here, we're ready, are we going to be in a lot of trouble here? And it was one of the great things about it was that everyone pulled together, and you kind of realize that relationship between, I guess, ultimately between the fans and the artist, with all these different people in between, when it works well, which is kind of what everyone's striving for, but when it works well, all of those people in between are trying to make it happen. They're trying to make it work as well as possible. So if an artist can't play a show, it's not in the venue's interest to go, okay, well, screw you guys, we're going to sue you, we're going to money, and we never want to see you again. And it's not in the artist's interest to do that to venues. You want to build those relationships where you find places that, you can go back to year and year and build an audience and, have those experiences between, the artist and the audience. And so everyone was on the same page. Everyone was like, we're going through this together. Nobody knows what's happening, but we're going to try and figure it out. So you want to bounce some dates, we'll work with that, and there was a lot of industry changes. And, I think one of the things that I thought was really difficult at the time was because it was a real hammer blow to the entire industry, because, for years and years, we've had income on record sales and things like that dropping. And, there's all people discussing about how much people make from streaming and stuff like that. But this was always the kind of the golden egg, was no matter what happens, live music will always be there. Live music is the thing you can always do. You can always get out, play shows, make some money, make some fans, introduce new people to the music, introduce old fans to, new albums, all that kind of stuff. That was always the safe thing. And suddenly that was pulled away. And so for a lot of artists, it has been it's been an incredibly challenging time for everyone in every industry, I understand. But for artists especially, to just suddenly have every form of income taken away and no roadmap in the early days. And I think that's one of the places we are now. Is there's still, unknowns, there's still things we're trying to figure out. We still don't know exactly when things will be normal, but I think at least we know it will be normal at some point. And that's what everyone's kind of looking for, is that moment when everything's back to normal and it's great, and we just have to figure out this middle bit, this what's going on right now, how soon can we go back? And I think that will be very different for a lot of different bands. I think bands that tour locally will be able to go back a lot sooner than bands that tour internationally. For us internationally, we have things like travel insurance. If we travel to America but we can't get the right insurance and somebody gets sick, that's a huge issue for us. But I think local musicians will be the pioneers in this. They'll be, blazing the trails where, okay, we're going to go back to these venues. Let's see if they're full capacity. Let's see if they're half capacity. Let's see if we can make money doing a small tour somewhere, and whether different regions of America, like Maria was saying, have got different rules. And I think, so, there will be artists who will be in the very near future going out and testing the waters. And that will kind of be the roadmap for all of us to see how they perform, how they do that. Like Rich said, with, the big corporations with Disney World and stuff, they have a huge impact. And also little small venues, are they getting back to life? And are people happy about going to gigs? Are the audiences, I know audiences are desperate to go back, but when are they happy to go back? They want to go back, and they want it to just be a gig. I just want to go to a gig. I just want to be up there and, sweaty and noise and all that kind of stuff. But for some people that can't come soon enough. And for others, there is an issue of, I want to do that, but I want to feel safe doing that. And that's going to be a little gray area in the middle, I think, that we have to figure out as we go along.
We are in a very creative industry. And we've seen some really innovative things happen in the last 6 months anyway, right? And Maria, I imagine you're talking to people now, who have come up with new ideas. Like I heard from Napa Blue Note, and they're looking to move their entire venue to a winery outdoors.
Right.
I mean, right place, right time for them. And Rich, most of your events are outdoors. For the most part, other than I think you do something around New Year's Eve that's inside. But if we have to get clever and innovative, then we're in the right industry for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, I was just saying, there's a lot of smart people that love challenges in this industry, from tour managers to promoters to venues to artists. I think that we're all looking at ways to get back to work. I'm supportive and a bit envious of my colleagues that have had the ability to do whatever it might be, whether it be the streaming concerts from their living rooms to setting up full sound stages in warehouses. And you've seen, like, Dave Cause's live streams have been that product of that, and they look amazing. There's talks about, there's in California, at least, there's car concerts. And there's been some, I know Rick Brown, Richie Elliott did a car concert in Escondido with a performing arts center. And so we've all been, we think about it every day. We're thinking, like, how can we do this? We have a concept to do some vertical concerts at one of our venues, balconies and on the floor, distance people. The challenge is that all of this takes a bit of risk and some money and approvals from local authorities. And by the time you pull it all together and then also give yourself a runway to be able to sell tickets and market it, well, then the COVID protocols might have changed. The weather might have changed. You definitely have to be outside right now doing shows. Indoor shows are just not going to be, at least in the West Coast, I don't think are going to be happening for a little while, till later in the summer. So yes, we love challenges. It would be great to have something, but they're hard to pull off, And I think there are definitely artists that are touring. I was on a call with a bunch of independent promoters, and there's a map out there of showing venues that want to do pod concerts versus car concerts versus indoor, and it's opening up. From it just doesn't get very far west. So,
Yeah.
coming from Florida through the middle, I mean, there's, there might be 150 venues that are booking shows actively right now. It should be a couple thousand, should be more than that. But I think we'll see that change. And so everything's shifting in the right direction, I would say.
Maria, you're on the phone a great deal, and you've got artists that are fairly sizable in stature. I mean, your artists are really well known. How is this working out for you? Because if the venues are only opening up to half capacity, are you able to make that work, financially for your guys and gals?
I believe that everyone wants to get back, right? Everybody, we're all in this most of the time because we love it, right? And our clients love what they do. And we are a live performance entity. So, we've tried the virtuals and there's been a handful, and yes, they work. But when it comes to who we are and what we represent, it's that live element. And the way we've been working around it, because when you cut the capacity, you're cutting revenue. And it affects everything, obviously. It affects, how much money you have piled up to pay all your bills. And, the venue has to get paid, the artist has to get paid, the marketing has to get paid. And so it's like, how do we work between the two to kind of begin to do that live thing? What we have found is we're taking it regionally to those that want to start the live sets. So instead of having, like, for example, this wouldn't work for you with Acoustic Alchemy, for example, James, here in the United States, right? Because, you have to have flights, visas, blah, 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 right?
Yep.
You got to pay your band if they're working or not, right? I know this
Absolutely.
You have to maintain this. And this is a big, huge burden. So what we've been thinking out of the box, is why don't we take the bands that live in New Jersey, that live in New York, and if we want to go out, let's tour that region, because we can stay on the ground. You don't have to worry about the flights and, are we needing to be tested, because now some have to be tested. I had an artist call me the other day and say, well, do we have to be vaccinated? So what we're doing is we're piecemealing it and having things begin to turn on a regional side, because that keeps the cost down for the travel on the artist, their overall touring costs. Now they can, drive instead of fly. We can be a little bit more flexible with the routing, because routing doesn't make any sense right now. Routing is not part of my vocabulary right now, because I may have 2 cities in one region that will work out right this second. And Rich, you said it earlier, we don't know. That can change in a week, right? So we don't know. I mean, from the weather, if it's an outdoor thing, to indoor, we were at 30%, now we're up to 50, but oh no, they're closing us back down again. I'm like, what? You just went up to 50%. Now they're closing you down completely. So it's this ongoing dialogue and trying to step out and not have an artist like a Gregory, who, by the way, we have had to move his biggest market for me. I book him in the Netherlands, and we had it's a 12,000 capacity venue, and we were at 9,000 tickets sold when all this came to happen in early March, and the show was late April of the same year. So we moved it once, we've moved it again, and we've moved it again. Now it's in 22 altogether. But we can't get to these places, right? We can't even think of those places right now. We're trying to get people to just gradually come out. It's like, come on, it's safe now. We can keep you in this region for 5 minutes, and then we'll work on that next region later. Because between the flights and the quarantine and the vaccinations and the therapeutics and there's so many variables. that we're piecemealing it by regions is what we're finding has helped. And people are receptive to it, because at the end of the day, I have been blessed with having bands that work a lot. They work a lot. They love to work. They work a lot. So when all this started happening, and there was all this, they're like, Maria, we're fine. Like, we'll sit tight. Like, we do not want to create these gigs, these deals where we're doing 30% or 40, because at the end of the day, it's not fair for anybody. I mean, it's not fair for the artist. Obviously, I'm the agent walking in. I got numbers in my head. And that's not going to happen because I'm not working with 100%. It's not fair to the markets. I mean, people want, what if they're the 42%, you know, the extra 2% that want to get in, or the extra 50%. And now we're at, usually we're at 90%, and now we can only feed 40% of that market. That's not fair to our supporters either, you know, and then we don't even know if the 40 are really going to show up. I mean, there are all these variables. And so we're taking it bit by bit. We're doing regions. That's one. We're trying to push that a little bit. That's me guiding them. At the same time, talking to some of these venues that are building venues outside of their regular element. Like you mentioned, Blue Note in Napa. There's a few of those. You know, I'm getting people go, well, you know, I do have this 800 capacity amphitheater. I'm like, dude, you never mentioned that to me. Oh yeah, well, you know, we needed to blah, blah, blah. And now, and I'm like, well, we're going to use it. I just had another promoter call and say he's got a 2,400 capacity amphitheater that they're going to use again. Yeah. And they're going to, you know, start a series or two. And so it's creating these outside idea elements that we otherwise wouldn't think of if we were going out there like we do. But I will say, I'll finish with this, that, you know, James, you mentioned 9/11, and I too was in the middle of that. Matter of fact, Rich, I was in that agency that you talked about, those specific artists. Yep. In the 9/11 time period. And I gotta say, there's nothing like a live performance. Mm-hmm. It's medicine. It is medicine, and people are needing their medicine. So I'm of the mindset that as soon as, look at what's going on in Florida. And yeah, maybe we on the West, we're going, whoa, too much information. But at the same time, people need that. We needed it at the 9/11. We will need it through this pandemic. There's a lot that has gone on with us shutting ourselves, isolating ourselves from the world. And people are hungry. People are hungry to get back to some normalcy. So I'm hopeful that we stay as communicative as we have turning it off. We have enough grace and communication, like Sandy, you and I have had with just an incident that we just had to deal with 5 minutes ago with a client. We have to have those talks. Some of them are going to be easier talks than others, but I do believe that communication is key. We have to stand together and go, we've got to get this back on, and just take it one day at a time. And I think sometimes what happens when I see the frustration sets in is because we begin to put expectations out there, and then we lose it because it's like, oh, darn, I thought this was gonna, you know, it's like, no, Maria, stop expecting that. Just let it play itself out, and have these things like we're having right now. There's a lot of people having these issues that we're having. We're not the only ones, you know. We're in this together. People.
I mean, this is a really great opportunity to have a conversation with all 5 of us here on Zoom, because, you know, I talk to each and every one of you, and Esther touches base with most of you folks, and to be able to sit here and talk right now and basically record our conversation so that others can get their questions answered, and maybe they will contribute, you know, their thoughts as well on the social media pages that we post this on, because we're not alone. You know, we're not alone, and we don't know what we don't know, and you know, there's humility in that, and you know, there's, you know, as Maria said, there's grace in that. But one thing I will say that you all have in common, all 4 of you here with me today, I don't know if I can include myself in that. You're all very calm under fire. And I've watched that from afar and close up, and the reactions have been thoughtful and methodical. So I think that is really key to the industry we're in, because panic is going to literally get us nowhere, you know?
Yeah, and I think, obviously we talked a couple of times about, what happened in 9/11 and how it affected travel and concerts and gathering, everything. And that was brief. It was basically, there was benefit concerts within a couple of
Right.
weeks after that.
Yeah.
We found an
Right.
immediate way to come back and recover, raise funds for the families that were affected and the first responders. But it was more of like, we all needed, as Americans and just society, we needed to kind of embrace each other and express it. This is a long, drawn out removal of what we normally do, from musicians, all the industry, media folks, promoters like myself, and the fans too. And, it will be interesting as we talk amongst ourselves, meaning like the behind the scenes folks, if you will. We know where the artists stand. A lot of times they're visual, they're out there. You could see them on Facebook Live, you could see them on streaming. We have an idea maybe how they're doing just from their social media accounts, let's say.
Yeah.
We don't know how the fans are doing. And they're the biggest part of this equation here, is that without them, we wouldn't be able to travel, tour, promote shows, and market those shows. And I would say that it's anybody's guess how they will handle 2021. We see signs that the demand is there, and everybody feels very bullish about the industry in the fall, let's say. And you could ask experts, and they'll say, "Oh, it's going to be huge, and everybody's going to be on tour, and it's just going to be gangbusters." And okay, so maybe that's the general assumption at this point. But there is still, you still have to make that decision to buy that concert ticket. And so I think the venues that will open up, they're going to have to show an ability to do it in a healthy way and adhere to guidelines. And I think if that is not expressed properly, or if there isn't a track record there, attendance could be down. And so we all think, like, okay, like Maria, you were saying, can we do 50% shows? It's really hard on the artists. It's not their responsibility to do 50% shows. We have to find a way to get back to work, but you kind of have to be maybe at a 75% capacity environment to probably be profitable. Well, what happens if the audience doesn't come along like we would expect them to? We all want to go back to work. The artists, we set up everything, and we just see a big cut. We're down 20. Possible. Most industry experts in the rock and roll world would say that's not going to happen. And I don't know about our industry. I think that so there's that thought, and it's a complete unknown. I mean, we're just kind of speculating really on what's going to happen. My guess is that, given the size of the venue, and we have a 1,000-seat amphitheater in Newport Beach, I mean, I think we could fill it. Because we're not talking 5,000, let's say. It's still a lot of people if we get lucky enough to get the permits to do that. But I do recognize that there is risk. So that's where the promoter side comes in, is that we might be opening up with some audience that wants to just take another little more time off and wait till 22. And we'll see that roll out. I think we're going to see that as the summer goes on, to look and see how everybody else is doing with this and what their demographic is, the age of their fan, and what town they're in. And so you start to study that and see how that is. Because ultimately we want to play for the fans.
Right.
They're the ones who prop the whole industry up.
That's right.
Yep.
And,
I think
go ahead.
I think one of the things that's going to be really interesting in the interim period is the vaccinations and how they roll out and how people do that. And I know Israel have got this, the vaccine passport, and it's certainly been talked about in England. Although it kind of has become a bit of a political issue, kind of, can you make it mandatory for people to show it? But I think that will be a huge thing in terms of confidence for some people. If you could have a venue that says, okay, we're at full capacity, but you're not getting in without a vaccine certificate saying you've had your shots and you're okay, that would make a lot of people, I think, go, great, I'm up for that. I've had my shots. I'm ready to go. If everyone else in the room and the band and everyone I meet between my house and coming back to my house after the show is vaccinated, great, I'm not worried. And I think there will be some venues that might take advantage of that, and other venues who go, we're not putting rules on people. If you don't feel like you need to get the vaccine, if you haven't been able to get a vaccine yet, we're still going to do it. We're still going to put measures in place and social distancing and things like that. So I think this kind of mushy interim period, there will be certain people who will make that choice. Will decide, like you were saying, how do we make it so that people are ready to come back now, and that will be different for different places around the world. And I know there are places around the world where they got a handle on this a lot quicker than other countries, and it'll be really interesting to see how everyone goes back at different times and how they make it that welcoming environment and safe environment. And it's one of those things. This is a huge thing, but venues have always had that concern about how do we make this place safe for the audience, so that and safe is a part of the enjoyment of it. The whole industry is about enjoyment. It's about taking something, making something, working out all the kinks, the contracts, and everything that goes on in the background, mandolin strings in the middle of Texas, all that kind of stuff. Whatever you need to do, it's all about that moment where people are having a good time. Hopefully the band's having a good time on stage and the audience are having a good time. And that is what, yes, it's all about money when you look at the business side of things. The money doesn't exist unless people are having a good time. People are enjoying it, and feeling safe is a huge factor in that.
Feeling
now.
safe is, and
Yeah,
there's just a quick anecdote, because I read that City Winery in New York, I believe, because they have clubs across America, right?
Yeah.
They had a situation. I read an article, so they may not be doing this currently, but they were in like November, December, where they had artists, they had live music, they had their dinner environment. And when you would arrive, you would do a rapid test, and then they would just say, stay, go to our lounge for 15 minutes. There's a glass of champagne. The rapid test champagne lounge was $50 on top of the price of your ticket and your dinner. So it was pricey. It's not for everybody. But if you tested positive, they would give you information about where to go and what to do from here. If you tested negative, come on in. Everybody in the room was negative for coronavirus. And they have a budget for great acts. And with the dinner and the pairing, it might've been a $200 night. And this, again, was a couple of months ago. I don't know if they're still doing it that way. But those kind of environments, that equation of how to put it together so you can actually open, I give them a lot of credit for that. I don't know, it's a small sample size about how to do this, but I think, to James' point, I do think you're going to see venues who are going to try the green, the green atmosphere. You either have a negative test or a vaccination card and you're allowed in. Because I think if they don't do that, they may not be able to open in 2021. So we'll see. It's March, and I think we're probably going to be hearing a lot of details on this March, April, and May, and then we'll be in the summertime.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the United States, where 3 out of 5 of us are right now, we're seeing some very interesting situations, bipolar, I guess we would say, polarized for sure, where part of the country is opening and the other part of the country is not. And so that's fascinating, to see. Those of us on the West Coast, we're a lot more cautious about going out. And on the East Coast, you're seeing festivals that are scheduled to happen in April and May. And that's going to be very interesting to watch. It's a watch this space kind of thing, because while they may be rolling out, we're all hearing rumblings that some of the artists are not willing to go. Some of the audience isn't willing to go yet. And it really is on a case-by-case basis. And I think the big takeaway from me in this conversation today was where Maria is right now with the regional situation, because she's talking to people all over the world and all over our country, and different things for different people. Rich is on the West Coast in Southern California, where your numbers have spiked quite a lot, in our state. And we are seeing a little bit of improvement on the vaccinations as in America on the whole. And I think yesterday was a record-breaking day of those who wanted, jabs and arms. They're getting them. And, across the world, again, in Europe, it's not so different than the United States, different countries, different philosophies, different border situations you guys are experiencing over there. So really, we are just waiting and seeing. And I think these kind of conversations are not only great for us to have, but also really essential so that we can stay connected to each other from these different corners, of what we're all doing. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to other folks and see how they're doing through this. And to you, Sandy, and I mean, it sounded like initially you get shocked thinking, oh my gosh, am I out of business? I mean, am I ever going to be able to survive this? And then you have clients who come on and say, no, now's a good time to promote.
Yeah. That was us last year for sure. I mean, Esther and I had a conversation, and I said, well, what else are you going to do, Esther, as the event marketing director for smoothjazz.com? I'm not sure there's a lot of events to market. We were really nervous for our clients, and for, and then we got to thinking, well, our other client base are artists that we help market and promote and build brands for. If they're not playing live, how would we be able to work with them? Because where would their revenue be coming from? But we did see a very unpredictable thing happen at smoothjazz.com, and which was wonderful. They just started recording, because the other factor that we haven't talked about yet is this is the music business. This is the entertainment business. These people that are making the music to perform live at your venues, that are recording and then going out on tour, that Maria, you're booking. And these are artists. This is not only their financial well-being, this is their mental and emotional well-being. This is who they are. So they did what they could do. Some of them were streaming. I mean, Michael McDonald did 2 incredible shows that I was so inspired by on a business level and also on an artistic level. He did 2 of those in a recording studio in Santa Barbara. That was very safe, and the whole world could join him. I thought that was cool. Like Dave Koz did that. But they also went and recorded new albums. And then they came to us and said, if we can't be seen on a stage, we can be seen on the Netflix of Smooth Jazz on smoothjazz.com. So can you help us? And, I know that is not sustainable indefinitely, because money's got to come from somewhere. They've got to be earning it. But we did see quite an uptick in new releases in 2020, and 2021 looks to be the same. Now we just got to get back out there, because it is at the very heart of what we all do. Everybody wants it.
Yeah, everybody wants it for sure. And
there will be new normals, though. I think, Esther, we've talked about this. We don't know that the new normal will be the same as the old normal.
Exactly. And I think Rich hit on it there when he said about, hopefully they do come back. Hopefully it will be late summer, fall, but the safety is a big issue, and it's people want it. But when it really comes to the crunch to go and buy that ticket, are they going to be too scared and think, oh gosh, how many people are going to be there, and how many people have been vaccinated? And I think that's where we go to what James was talking about with the vaccination passport, and getting tested where you're going to be negative or positive. I mean, nobody really wants to go into a room anymore where we think people might be positive, and if they then that's how we've all got. We were never like that before, but now we know the danger of this. Nobody wants to end up sick, but we want this industry back. We want the music back. We want the live gigs back. And you can only hope, as Rich said, that what way it's going to go, you don't really know what the capacity is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Or hopefully it just, they do bring in the test, whether it's wherever where you're going to be, or they do have the vaccine. Your country is just flying with the vaccines. I mean, towards Europe, you are way ahead. So
yeah, it's really interesting. And it's really interesting to see those shows that were in play that have moved once, twice, maybe third time's the charm. people are not getting refunds. They're not, I mean, we saw, say, I'll throw a number, 80%, okay, of the house sold when all this started to unravel. We may have 15% of it refunds. And the rest, people are holding on to these tickets. They're not asking for refunds.
They don't want the refund, yeah.
They don't, they really want it to happen. So that's going to be interesting to see, because we're talking about the safety, right? It's key. So we can fully be entertained, right? We want them to feel safe. But at the same time, if I'm holding on to my tickets, what am I putting on the promoter, like you, Rich, that, or Sandy, when you put on the promoter hat on, I bought my ticket. I'm keeping my ticket. When you finally settle that date, I suppose I'm going to trust you that you're going to give me that safe environment, because I have my ticket. So I want to see how those two reconnect. That's just because there's that, for me, there's a disconnect still, in the sense where I have more shows here. Matter of fact, we had to completely cancel 2 shows because it was a package. And as we moved it further into the future, one of the acts on the package was like, no, 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 no. We're going into a new record release cycle, and it's going to change everything up. So we want to kind of pull away from this package. And so we had to, because you bought a ticket for a package. I don't have a package for you now. So that's a whole different element. So we canceled the shows. But there are shows where people are still holding on to tickets.
That's
And,
true.
Yeah.
you know, it's going to be interesting how that turns around, where I've purchased tickets from a, you know, promoter, or I've got a client that's, you know, I'm just saying, I just use that for a second because I have 2 promoters on this call, but, you know, I'm like, well, people are holding on to these tickets.
Yeah.
Well, I think they might be nudging us along, you know. I think the fans are, because, you know, we will, you know, we're like for the Newport Beach Jazz Festival, which is scheduled for June, and we're now looking at our options for the fall or for next year. And like every event is in, you know, on probably in North America, you're looking at the calendar and when can you pull it off? So we're not actively promoting. We don't have Facebook ads. We're not spending money, but the website's up and there's a ticketing page and you could buy a ticket. And, you know, we're selling tickets, and, you know, it's not a lot, but, you know, they come in packs of 4 and 2. And, you know, you just have to think like that. I'm that customer in the middle of a pandemic, or still trying to kind of sort through it. And, you know, what's that message saying to us? It's like, let's go. Let's, you know, come on, let's do the show. I mean, it has to be. It's a vote of confidence that we want to see those artists at your venue because we love it. We love the music. We love the environment. It's, you know, a lot of these things, the customers who go to a festival or a certain venue, let's say, they know each other. I mean, it's their family too. And so, you know, they want to get back to see everybody that they recognize and they know. And so I think they're trying to kick us in the butt a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think so. And I think we are very fortunate. We may not be in the biggest genre in the music business, but we're in a very loyal genre. And I know we have all experienced that, you know, and jazz is a very large umbrella. You know, it's there's smooth, there's straight ahead, there's Latin, you know, there's this whole new jazz thing, chill, soul. And Rich, you're a great example of how to book that and promote that, because your series and festivals have a little bit of everything, you know, from the latest, coolest new artists to legends, you know, Boz Scaggs, Smokey.
And we got Avery Sunshine on the Newport Beach Jazz Festival. So Maria and I got to figure out how to make that work, you know.
We'll make it work, right?
I know.
We have to. We
It's
have to
amazing.
figure it out.
You know, and we have a jazz weekender thing that we do every year. I started that up with Nathan East, and smoothjazz.com is, you know, the sponsor of that. And we had to move we ended up getting asked to do a cruise by a local travel agency to Tahiti on board a really small, because our concept is intimate, you know, keep it really intimate. And where the audiences and the artists blend together. Maria, you were with us this last year in 2020. You saw the example
Amazing.
in Carmel.
Amazing.
And in fact, Rich, you were the only one that wasn't there. So you're going to have to join us next time we come back in Carmel.
True.
Yeah, please come, please come. But it's more of an intimate thing. But this local travel agency asked if we could do a cruise with them and basically take it to sea. So we booked Tahiti for which was a year and a half in advance. It was going to be October of 2021 this year. And we thought, oh, we'll sell that out. Only 300 people, like 150 cabins. And then COVID hit. So we ended up moving it to April of 22. It shook up the lineup a little bit, but the audience stayed right in place, like you're saying. The ones that had purchased cabins have kept the cabins, you know, and this is not a small ticket event. It's, you know, it's a very expensive yacht, really is what it is. So I was very heartened by that. And I'm thinking that that is what we will see in our contemporary jazz, soul, R&B genre. You know, we're going to see a loyal audience like we have over the years.
Yeah.
Hoping so.
I think the
Crossed.
demographics as well have certainly for Acoustic Alchemy, you know, our audience, you know, there are some young people in there, of course, but you know, it's people of a certain age. And I think they know what they want. They know what they like. They, you know, a young audience is incredible, but it's fairly fickle. You know, they have so many options of what they want to do on a night, and there's, you know, 100 different things that they can be doing, and they can switch between them very quickly. And I think, you know, from my experience, from our audiences, they want to do that, you know, and once they know they want to do that, they will do it. And so if you say, well, you might have to wait 6 months, you might have to wait a year. Okay, I want to go on a cruise and do this. I want to go to this venue that, you know, that I remember, you know, being there 20 years ago and seeing this band, and that's what I want to do. And that is the loyalty that you see, you know, and I think these days as well, you know, especially social media and everything, the lines between artists and audience are kind of blurring. You know, it's a lot more of a personal relationship. You know, artists get to see what their fans are doing literally online. You know, who are these people who are following me? You can have a little window into their lives, and the audience members have a window into the artist's life, you know. And so you have that kind of feeling that we are all in this together. And so if an artist is hurting because they can't tour that year, the fans want to help. And if the same the other way around, you know, when bands are seeing, you know, people struggling with all kinds of issues because of, you know, what the last year has brought, whether it's, you know, health, financial, or whatever, they see that they need something to look forward to. They need entertainment to, you know, something, a light at the end of the tunnel that you know, everyone can look at and go, you know, I think everyone's waiting for that moment where you can sit around, you know, and just go, do you remember that year? I mean, that was crazy, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
do you remember how terrible it was? But, you know, there will come a point.
You remember when we couldn't get out of our bedrooms and we talked to each other on Zoom?
Well, this isn't half bad here, you know.
No, this is good, guys. Yeah.
I kind of agree. I think those early shows when we come back, and I mean, we're targeting late July for our concert series, and we'll see. I mean, there's, you know, but I want to be at those shows. Like I think they're going to be exhilarating. I think the connection, like, you know, I mean, some of the bands have not played with each other, you know, in a year. I mean,
That's right.
not everybody, but a lot of them haven't. And
A lot.
I mean, so they're going to be thrilled to be doing what they're doing. The audience is going to sense that. The audience wants to hoot and holler, you know, and I just can't wait. I just think it's going to be so exciting. And, you know, I really hope that for a lot of reasons, we can be looking at that time frame as being, you know, summertime and the fall. And, you know, I would say if I was a betting man, I would say that's where we're going to be.
Yep. And let's stay in touch, guys. Let's all, you know, I think if we could be like Dr. Fauci and, you know, coordinate monthly here and visit with each other and give us the, you know, what we're seeing around the world from our vantage points. I think it's really important. And I appreciate you joining me here today, Esther and James, Maria and Rich. it's just been really good to get together and hear what each of you guys are experiencing from your own corner of the world. Everybody stay healthy, and hopefully we'll be back again and talk about this some more, maybe next month.
Sounds good.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
There's hope. There's hope.
Take care.
Yes. Bye.